We continue with Seth Stephens-Davidowitz's book, Don't Trust Your Gut, the sixth and final part of the interpretation. We're going to talk about happiness. In Seth's book, happiness refers to the pleasure and satisfaction derived from specific activities. Asking if you are happy is about your current momentary feelings. Distinguishing from happiness, another term in English is well-being, referring to sustained satisfaction over a period. A comprehensive evaluation of your quality of life. Asking if you are well-being is about your entire life. For research purposes, the key is that well-being is a stable variable. If you ask now, and then ask again an hour later, or 2 days later, you're likely to give the same answer. Happiness is momentary, fluctuating. Chatting with a friend might make you happy, but if your favorite sports team loses an hour later, you might not be happy. Alright, concepts clarified. In this part, we won't delve into well-being. We'll focus on happiness. There's a large-scale collaborative research project called Mappiness, which objectively measures the level of happiness people experience while doing various activities. Participants install an app on their phones, and it randomly prompts them several times a day to answer 3 questions. 1. What are you doing right now? 2. Who are you with? 3. How happy do you feel on a scale of 0-100 points? Over a few years, researchers collected over 3 million happiness measurements from more than 60,000 participants. They categorized all activities into 40 types, and precisely calculated the happiness each activity brought. Let's look at the results. This chart ranks 40 activities by happiness level, with scores relative to not doing activity. If the score is positive, it means doing that activity is better than doing nothing, bringing a certain level of happiness. If the score is negative, it means it brings discomfort. The happiest activity is intimacy making love, with a score of 14.2 points. The second is attending theater dance concert, with a score of 9.29 points. The least happy activity is sick in bed at -20.4 points, followed by working studying at -5.43 points. These are the most objective and accurate statistical data we currently have on what activities make people happy. You might immediately notice that some scores differ from what you'd expect. Don't worry, it might be a case of misconceptions. In fact, humans are not very good at evaluating whether an activity will bring happiness. This is because we usually estimate the happiness of an activity either after it has happened or before it occurs, relying on memory or prediction, both of which are inaccurate. For instance, if someone is in the process of getting tenure as a professor, asking them how much impact achieving tenure would have on their future happiness, they might say it would make them happy forever if successful, and unhappy forever if not. However, if you observe them in real time after the results, you'll find that those who got tenure, and those who didn't have similar happiness levels in the subsequent period. People are happy when they should be, and unhappy when they should be, regardless of major life events. Research indicates that major events like job promotions, breakups, or changes in political leadership don't have long-term significant effects on a person's happiness. The real determinants of happiness are the things you do every moment. You might argue that predictions are difficult, but memories should be accurate, right? If you've recently experienced something, you should remember your happiness or pain level accurately. Not really. You might have heard of the peak-end rule, which we've discussed before. When recalling an experience, we don't evaluate it based on every moment's feelings. In fact, we often don't have a deep impression of the duration of the experience. We evaluate based on the peaks and endings. The highest point of happiness, or the lowest point of pain and the feeling near the end. Think about your high school life. Do you only remember those few key moments? Both predictions and memories are inaccurate, which is why the Mappiness study is crucial. Mappiness asks you about your happiness while you're in the process of doing something. The most genuine experience. To maximize genuine happiness experiences, we should use the results of the Mappiness study as a guide when planning various activities. Seth even suggests printing this happiness ranking on your phone case, so you can check it before deciding whether to do something. The Mappiness ranking reveals that people generally underestimate the happiness level of 5 activities. 1. Exhibition museum library. 8.77 points. 2. Sports running exercise. 8.12 points. 3. Drinking alcohol. 5.73 points. 4. Gardening. 7.83 points. 5. Shopping errands. 2.74 points. Most of these activities require proactive involvement. On the other hand, the happiness levels of 5 activities are overestimated. Activities that people think are very happy, but are not. 1. Sleeping, resting, relaxing. 1.08 points. 2. Computer games, iPhone games. 2.39 points. 3. Watching TV film. 2.55 points. 4. Eating, snacking. 2.38 points. 5. Browsing the internet. 0.59 points. These are relatively sedentary activities, not requiring much energy. Perhaps because we often feel tired and don't want to move, we tend to believe that activities like lying in bed and playing on the phone are very happy. But in reality, lying down and playing might not make you as happy as you think. We tend to think going out to see an exhibition is troublesome, but once you're on your way, you might actually feel very happy. The lesson here is that we should engage in more proactive activities. Nowadays, living conditions are improving, especially with the digital economy providing a plethora of free entertainment. However, the reality is that people are generally not happy. In any survey, only about 30% of the population claims to be happy. Why aren't people getting more happiness? One reason is not living in the moment. Many people live either in the past or the future all day long. They don't savor their meals, thinking about tomorrow's work while eating. They don't appreciate nature's beauty while strolling, preoccupied with yesterday's speech performance. In such cases, happiness is elusive. A study asked an additional question. Are you thinking about something else? The results showed that 46.9% of the time, we are doing one thing while thinking about another. The researchers concluded that people's thoughts are wandering thoughts, and wandering thoughts are unhappy thoughts. This is why everyone should learn a bit of mindfulness. Mindfulness helps you focus on the present, allowing you to discover more beauty in life and become happier. A more critical reason for so many unhappy people is that we don't spend much time doing happy things. In the US, on average, people spend only 2 hours a day doing various happy activities, including chatting, socializing, gardening, meditation, and so on. Besides sleep, people spend about 8 hours doing the least happy activities, such as working, housework, commuting. From 2003 to 2019, despite an increase in actual income, the time spent on the happiest activities decreased. Where did the time go? Primarily into work. Many people claim to love their jobs, but when asked if they are happy at that moment while working, most say they are not happy. The pain of working ranks just below sick in bed. But not working is not an option. However, you can adjust the happiness level of your work. Researchers found 3 ways. If you only work, the happiness level is minus 5.43 points. But if you work from home, the happiness level is 3.59 points. If you listen to music while working, it's 3.94 points. And if you work with friends, the happiness level can even reach 6.25 points. Note that it must be friends. With friends around, work becomes a game. This applies when not working too. Being with others changes your happiness score, but it depends on who these people are. The following statistics show how much your happiness level changes relative to being alone when you are with the following people. Romantic partner. Plus 4.51 points. Friends. Plus 4.38 points. Other family members. Plus 0.75 points. Clients, customers. Plus 0.43 points. Children. Plus 0.27 points. Colleagues and classmates. Minus 0.29 points. Other people, participant knows. Minus 0.83 points. Some people increase your happiness just by being present, while others make you prefer solitude. Seth also mentions some interesting phenomena. For example, becoming a sports fan. Does it make you happier or less happy? Winning by the team you support will undoubtedly bring you happiness, but losing causes significant pain. Quantitatively speaking, being an ardent fan of a particular team is not a worthwhile endeavor. For weak teams, it's self-evident. Constant losses make for constant unhappiness. But even if you're a fan of a strong team that consistently wins, your expectations for victory are high, so winning doesn't make you particularly happy. Losing, on the other hand, brings intense pain. Overall, it's not worth it. Seth says being a sports fan is like doing drugs. The deeper you get, the less happiness you derive from it. And once the happiness is interrupted, it's significant pain. Without real-time quantitative statistics, how could we know these things? Also, nature makes people happy. However, the degree of happiness from different natural environments varies. Your happiness level is highest at the seaside, 6.02 points, followed by mountains at 2.71 points, and forests at 2.12 points. A sunny day with a pleasant temperature makes you happy, but rain and snow don't necessarily make you very unhappy. With this data, we can treat happiness as an engineering project, designing our activities to maximize happiness. This doesn't mean lying on the beach all day, but you can always do more happy things, and fewer unhappy things. The Mappiness study tells us that we often misjudge the happiness level of many things. A better approach is to consider that happiness can be cumulative. If work itself is not happiness, but being with friends brings happiness, then we should strive to work with friends as much as possible. If you don't like your colleagues, from a life happiness perspective, you should find a new job. The happiness score for a meeting is minus 1.5 points, but with a sea view, it's 6.02 points. So, if you hold a meeting in a place with a sea view, isn't that an activity with a happiness score of 4.52 points? Of course, it may not be a direct linear addition, and Mappiness scores might not be suitable for Chinese people. But I think this awareness is essential. You have the right to do happy things, you need to understand what truly makes you happy, and you can adjust your happiness. And with that, we've finished discussing Don't Trust Your Gut. The conclusions from data might not always be right, but compared to pure intuition, if someone has data, we should consider it seriously.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.